Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Man, we have a really cool show for you guys this afternoon. We're going to talk about something that I've never really talked about on my channel, and that's Puckwudgies. Okay, so they're pretty cute, actually, from afar. From afar, they're pretty cute. We have some videos we're going to talk about today, and some eyewitness accounts. And I have Dennis Carroll here with me today. We had such a great show last week. My goodness, Dennis and I talked about shapeshifters in secret societies. And what a wonderful, wonderful show that was. If you guys missed that, please go back and check it out. Dennis also has a show tonight where he's going to be doing, I'm not sure if it's a seminar, but he's doing a show tonight on the Fae. And he's going to talk about that in a little bit. So you guys, please tune in tonight to Hunting the Shadows. That's Dennis's channel over on YouTube. Please go over there and subscribe. Okay, if you guys would like to follow along with all of my shows and everything I'm up to, go to my website. You can find all my information there. That's thecryptidhuntress.com. I also have a little shop in there. And yeah, just check it all out. The calendar of events, places where I will be in person, at conferences and campouts, things like that. It's on there at the very bottom of my website. Okay, also, if you guys would like to support all my work, and this coincides with my remote viewing show, really, it's my Patreon. You can become a member of my Patreon. Just go to the Cryptid Huntress over on Patreon. Thank you to all of my members there. I also have a membership here on my channel. Shout out to all my channel members. You guys, they all have, everybody that's a member has a star by their name in the chat today. So thank y'all so much for all your support. I do put exclusive content on my channel for the memberships. And also I have a shop that's called War Woman Goods. Shout out to everybody who has purchased something out of my shop. I've been sending out free Cryptid Huntress merch with every purchase. So if you guys are interested in that, go check out my shop on Etsy. You got to put all that in one word, War Woman Goods. It's like smushed together. I don't know why Etsy does that, but it's there. So thank you guys so much for your support. Okay, well, let's get to our show today, because we have a lot to talk about. And Dennis is extremely knowledgeable in this subject, okay, in the Fae and all sorts of stuff like trolls and gremlins. We're going to get into all of it, and leprechauns as well. So yeah, so we're going to be talking about the shape-shifting Puckwudgie sightings, black imps, almost forgot about that, and other little people encounters of Native American legend. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Puckwudgies, okay, because I understand some people may not know what a Puckwudgie is. Puckwudgies are one of the oldest mythical creatures in North America, whose name translates to a person of the wilderness. Now, I read another interpretation that said something about a disappearing person of the wilderness. So we'll talk about that. They resemble humans, except they are much smaller, have a canine-like nose, larger ears, lips, and fingers. They've been compared to trolls, goblins, and leprechauns. Puckwudgies have the ability to shapeshift into dangerous animals like panthers and cougars, big cats. They also turn themselves into a combination of creatures and look half porcupine if they choose. They can also appear and disappear at will, confuse humans, create fire, launch poisonous arrows, use magic, and lure people to their deaths. There have been many reports of Puckwudgie sightings across the east coast of the U.S., and that's where Dennis and I both live. We're on the East Coast, particularly around Massachusetts and New England. There's a home security video, and I may put the link in the comments today if I can, or in the chat. But there's a video security camera video of what looks to me like a Puckwudgie in someone's carport. It looks like it's in their driveway around 1:30 in the morning. We're going to talk about that today. That was in North Carolina. Okay, so, and there's been multiple other videos. I have some still shots from some of those today. We're going to discuss all of it. So to help me talk about this and explore the Puckwudgies and these little people today, I have my friend Dennis Carroll here in the studio, who has over 40 years of experience in the field of the paranormal. He studied, researched, and investigated many aspects pertaining to the paranormal and supernatural with his own personal experiences. He's a well-known authority on folklore, legends, superstitions, cryptozoology, and the occult. He's a UFO cryptid researcher. You guys can find him on his YouTube channel. That is Hunting the Shadows on YouTube. Please help me welcome to the show my friend Dennis Carroll. Hey, Dennis.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Hey, I'm excellent. I'm so good. I'm so excited to talk about Puckwudgies today.
Well, you know, I had it's an interesting thing about Puckwudgies. I had somebody ask me once about in a lecture I was talking about them, and asked me to describe them. I said, well, if you think about Ewoks from Star Wars, you think about Ewoks from hell on steroids, and you got Puckwudgies. Okay, that's it.
I love Ewoks. The Ewok Adventures they had a series of them back when I was a kid in the 1980s, and that was, I think that was my brother's favorite movie series when he was a kid. The Ewok Adventures, that was a great series, and who would have ever thought that some of those characters seem to be based on real life creatures today?
Okay, yeah. You know, here's the interesting thing too about this, Jessica, and I'll be doing a show tonight on some of this too as well. Some of the fae and the fairy folklore and all that stuff. It seems like a lot of this stuff is centralized around some of the mounds that we have in this country. Of course, these I call these kind of beings. I call them the small humanoid beings. And you hear about these all over the world. In every culture, they're there. Not just in the Celtic culture, but also across this whole country. You've got reports of these little beings that are seen with different names by the different tribes. But this stuff is ongoing, and they're always described in many different ways. Now, you look at the Puckwudgie. He's described as having quills on his back, very much like a porcupine. And if you listen to the way they describe him, he's got the big nose, he's got the ears. He sounds like a porcupine. If you look at him a little bit, yes, it does look like a porcupine. And I think here's the interesting thing: the Native Americans, whenever they tried to describe anything that they weren't, familiar with, they would use the animals around them to help them describe some of these things. Look at those quills. I mean, that looks very much like some type of a quasi-looking porcupine, or as they call them overseas, the hedgehogs. That's interesting. And here's another thing that's about the same size as the Puckwudgie is described as being. And I know on a lot of these films you've got and a lot of these pictures and all that, you will see these things. They are about what we're looking at is about 12 inches tall, the way it looks. Yes, that's another interesting thing about the Puckwudgie. It has weapons, very much like the Native Americans did. They have spears, they have bows and arrows. And by the way, their arrows and their knives are supposed to be poisonous if they stick you with them and all that stuff. So they're just bad all the way around characters. You would not want to associate with Puckwudgies. Definitely, you wouldn't want them in your yard or hanging around your garden. You definitely wouldn't want one in your house. But they have those magical, supernatural qualities and properties to them. They can mess with your mind. They can lead you off of the trail, and they can shapeshift. So you've got a lot of different magical qualities to the Puckwudgies. They're like I said, they're on steroids, definitely. Supernatural steroids.
Oh yeah, I find it interesting that you said that they're often seen around burial mounds, the Indian burial mounds. That's interesting because William Nighthawk was telling us, he did a show about a week or so ago, right before the show that I was doing on the I think it was the Dog Man, I guess. But he was talking about how a lot of like Native American cultures, the medicine men and women will either bless or curse some land, and they basically summon some of the cryptids, okay, like Dogman and whatever else is out there, Dogman and Sasquatch, to protect that land at all cost. And considering these things have weapons and they can shapeshift, I would assume that those can be summoned as well to protect an area that is sacred, such as a burial mound.
Oh yeah, definitely. You have that supernatural thing going on where these guardians are invoked to guard these sacred places. It's almost like they're elementals in that respect. We've heard us talk a lot about elemental spirits and stuff that are actually tied to the land. And when you invoke these guardians, whether they be Puckwudgies or dogmen or whatever the situation is, they never go away. They stay there. And I find it very interesting that a lot of this activity, like you say, it takes place around these mounds and these sacred areas. Look at the Superstition Mountains. Look at Shasta, Mount Shasta, and the list goes on and on. These are sacred places, and without a doubt, it would not surprise me that they have not invoked or placed guardians in these areas over their sacred areas. Definitely.
Yeah, actually, on some of the promos that I put out, I do a lot of advertising for my shows, before the shows come out when we do these live shows. And there was one of the viewers had actually posted on my YouTube channel underneath one of in my community tab that she had encountered Puckwudgies. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. Okay, but she said that she had actually encountered some Puckwudgies at Mount Shasta. I believe she said on a hike. Okay, she said they were interesting creatures. So wow, they're near.
That's one of the things we'll be talking about today. The black imps are in Mount Shasta. You've got a lot of weirdness going on, a lot of high strangeness in Mount Shasta. You've got UFOs, Bigfoot, Dogman. You've got hidden lost cities. You've got the black imps. You've got a lot of stuff going on out there. So that's like I say, wherever these areas are, it seems like it draws this activity to it, or they're either invoked as guardians over some of this place, or whatever the situation is. You're going to find that there, And I had several cases my own self where people have encountered these kind of things, and they will be close to burial areas or the mounds. So it seems like, that centralizes around these places as well. So if you've got that on your property, be careful. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when I was doing some research on the Puckwudgies, I also found that they're, like you said, they're commonly found on areas of high strangeness and places that have a lot of paranormal activity. They've been sighted near, and this is from the research that I was looking up. It said near Fall River, which is near close to the home of Lizzie Borden. Okay, Lizzie Borden, who was the alleged axe murderess, right? And so they've also been sighted in haunted Moundsville State Penitentiary, which is interesting. It says in the penitentiary, so that means that they're inside places, and around Round Rock in Texas, where Bigfoot has been spotted. So places where Bigfoot has been spotted. Also, if it's in the Massachusetts area and in New England, I've been really focusing lately, it seems like, on the New England cryptids. And there are so many, from the Palmyra werewolves that you and I talked about, to all sorts of cryptids I'd never heard of. Sea serpents, lake monsters.
These places pop up like in the Bridgewater Triangle and places like that. And all these things are going on. And that's one of the first things many, many, many years ago that drew me to cryptozoology, was that supernatural factor of a lot of this stuff that's going on. And these are supernatural places, I think, in that respect. They draw supernatural activity, and you're going to have stuff like that, definitely. And Puckwudgie is definitely a supernatural entity, without a doubt. If you can shapeshift, in my book, you're supernatural, okay? That's the way that goes.
Oh yeah, definitely supernatural. And I find it also interesting that the different tribes of Native Americans all have a different take on what the Puckwudgies are and what their intentions are, because some of them say that they hate humans. I mean, despise humans, and they'll do anything to trick you, to ultimately cause your death. But others say that actually, if you leave out gifts for them and you work with them and you have a working relationship with them, they're actually good and they'll help you, and they're quite crafty little things.
That's the interesting legend of that, Jessica. According to a lot of the northeastern Indian tribes, their god, one of their principal gods, actually went to war with the Puckwudgies. And there was, up until that time, there was supposed to be sort of an uneasy alliance thing going on. You know, you don't bother us, we won't bother you, kind of thing. But then something happened and tipped the scales, and the Puckwudgies actually went to war with one of their principal gods and overcame that god and banished him from the earth. So the Puckwudgies are still here, supposedly with us, without a doubt, causing havoc and some bad stuff going on in the woods and the forests around. And you know, it's interesting that the Native Americans would warn their, you know, children and their women, do not go out alone in the woods against these things. They're waiting to either grab you or molest you or do whatever it is they're going to do. They're not good. And also another interesting facet of the Puckwudgie is the fact it can use its mind to confuse you and lead you off the trail or lead you to your death and lead you over a cliff or something. So they're very bad all the way around. They're no longer any kind of a good thing about them, and that's what the Native Americans felt about them in that respect.
Exactly. Bigfoot Michigan Rob, thank you for being here. He's thank you for that super sticker. I appreciate that. Hey, JJ and Dennis. Okay. Okay, well, I found two different interpretations of what Puckwudgie means. Okay. And so Puckwudgie, there are two different interpretations. In one interpretation, it said that they are the little wild man of the woods that vanishes. Okay. And the other one is just a person of the wilderness. Okay, I like the one that's about the little man of the woods that vanishes. I think that's actually cooler. So they can apparently they can either go invisible, they can access portals, they can shapeshift. I mean, I've been seeing videos. Okay, if you go, Dennis, to let's just say YouTube, for instance. Okay, you can go to YouTube and you type in. I just typed in little people. Okay, like little people sightings, because you type in Puckwudgie, there's not a lot of videos and stuff. But when you go to these little people videos of actual sightings, you can see things that look what a Puckwudgie would look like, including if you go to Instagram, for instance, my friend Trey, he's been on my show at Spaced Out Radio. Trey has a YouTube, or not, I guess it's YouTube and Instagram channel called Squatch Me Now. And so I took a screenshot from his video, and I do have it up on my Instagram account. There's a video of what to me looks like a Puckwudgie. And I would assume, I'd say this was a Puckwudgie. The story behind this, and this is a screenshot from my phone, but the story behind this video is there's like a little bipedal creature. Okay, in this screenshot, it looks like it's holding a knife. I'm just saying it. Maybe my imagination's running away with me. Okay, but when there's this little creature and it's like a little puffball and it's running around, some people were saying, well, maybe it could have been like a raccoon on 2 feet or something. But it's a little puffball on with 2 legs, and then it looks like it's holding something in its hand and it's running
very
around.
Much like a porcupine. Very much like a porcupine, the way it looks. Yes.
It looks like a porcupine kind of, but it's on 2 legs and it's running very quickly. And they said that it was actually captured at 1:30 a.m. on an outdoor camera facing someone's carport or their back porch in North Carolina. Okay, so that's on the East Coast, which is interesting because a lot of these reports are located along the East Coast of the United States.
That is interesting.
It is interesting. Okay.
Very interesting. Yeah, I watch it.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is something. Yeah, I just said I watched it. It is very interesting. To me, to me, just saying, I've seen a lot of this stuff and over the years. To me, it looks kind of authentic in the way that it's put out, and the way the movements are in it is very real looking to me in that respect. It's almost, it is a bipedal thing, whatever it is.
Mhm.
It's moving on two legs without a doubt. It very much looks like a Puckwudgie. I mean, what else could it be besides that? The actual descriptions of them are that way. And in my book, I think I mentioned in Beyond the Shadows in my book, and that, well, I had a friend who actually had a run-in with something like this when he was a child. He actually saw something like this, and it was dressed in furs and all that stuff, and it went down a hole, and it was no more than 12 inches high. The thing that he saw. So, it makes you wonder next time you're out in the woods. Keep an eye on the ground too. You may
Yeah.
see something you might not expect. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be so worried about them in their little form. Because they're just gonna, I mean, they can stab you with their little knives and things like that, but they're pretty tiny. It's when they
Uh-huh.
shapeshift into something like a cougar, that's when I would be worried.
Uh,
Okay. I would be
Yeah.
way more worried. They're almost like little gremlins from that movie,
Yeah.
Gremlin, right? Is it Gremlin?
Uh,
So I wanted
Goblins
to say
or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
little goblins. Well, Candy, thank you so much for that super sticker. I appreciate that. So there's another video dentist that's been making the rounds for a while on social media. I flashed a picture of it up here. This is a still shot. This looks almost identical to that creature in North Carolina, but this one has clothes on. This is like somebody's
Yeah.
pet. And I don't know the story behind this. And it's just a still shot. But this little thing is running around on two legs. Okay. It runs
Uh-huh.
around an entire room, like in somebody's house, and it's hopping. It's not just running, it hops and it jumps
Right.
and it
Uh-huh.
runs, but it's on two legs, and it kind of defies being some. I mean, it could be a little Pomeranian dog or something. I don't know, walking on two legs. But I don't know the way
Uh-huh.
it hops. I mean, it could be a bird. I mean, there's a lot of things that these things that we're seeing on these videos could be. Personally, the majority of the videos, not majority, but I'm going to say at least half of the videos that I watched, I think that they're monkeys. Okay, I think a lot of them are
Uh-huh.
actually monkeys. Like this one, there's a video that shows this little thing with a hat. Like
Uh-huh.
we talk
Oh
about
yeah.
the trolls with the little
Yeah.
pointy hats. I think that video is of a monkey with a hat on. Okay, so but it doesn't mean
Well,
that
that
these
kind of
things don't exist.
runs over. What you're running over into is kind of the gnomes. The gnomes have little red. They're called red caps, by the way. That's another name for them in myth folklore. These things have been, and like that I said about the boy that I talked about that actually saw one of these. It had clothes on, but it was like furs and all that stuff. Uh, so you got, they're like diminutive people. Definitely, they have clothes. They have weapons. They have bows and arrows, spears. They're a civilization per se in that respect. They act like just like we do. We have the attributes of the humanoids, or whatever name you want to give us on that as well. So you're dealing with sort of these the different, and when you hear the different Indian tribes talk about these things, the different Native American names they give them, they always mention they're wearing clothes, they have weapons, but yet they can be shapeshifters, like you said earlier. They can change into a cougar, they can change into a coyote, or whatever the situation is. So you're dealing with a small supernatural being. And that's
Yes.
basically what it is. And when you deal with something like that, all the cards are on the table. Anything can happen because they have that type of power. They have that kind of supernatural connection going on with them. And by the way, the arrows and spears and knives that they use supposedly have poison. So if you're smart enough to make bows and arrows and dip them in poison, you're pretty smart. You're pretty up on it, definitely.
They are. Well, they're pretty dangerous. Something else that I was reading is that their skin can glow. It like glows
Uh,
in the dark. You can see them glowing. But they usually have kind of grayish colored skin. of course. And let's see, and they've been in movies and stuff. I mean, I think that they first became popular in the book I think it's Hiawatha. There's a book about Hiawatha that they are featured in. And then they were also in the Harry Potter movies, I guess in the books too. But they were known or shown in the Harry Potter movies as well. So they've got some history.
She did a belt. J.K. Rowling's like Tolkien. You know, they went back to folklore. They went back to the cultures, the different cultures, and got this stuff. It's fascinating in that respect. It always is to me. The different areas and locations and the similarities of it. You know, like I've said so many times before, Jessica, the patterns are there. The connections are definitely there. That's connecting all this stuff, and it is a supernatural connection. You know, definitely without a doubt. And people are seeing something, and and a lot of times, like we said earlier, they have to explain it by things that they know about, like porcupines and so on, or raccoons or whatever. If you look at raccoons, and I've run into them a lot in my travels, they're almost like people in many ways. They can set up. I've seen them actually set up and walk around on two feet, and their front paws are like little hands. They can use them in that way. So the American natives knew about all this stuff. They're very familiar with it, and they could understand a lot of these things. And they say, "Oh, well, that looks like so and so to me. It's acting like a certain way, you know." But they gave them supernatural abilities as well in their beliefs, because they knew this was something that wasn't actually normal occurring thing. This was something extraordinary, without a doubt.
Yeah. Ryan Tripoli is in the chat. Hey, Ryan. He says, depending on the tribe, the Puckwudgies can be considered sacred. Some tribes believe that they are the spirits of nature and they are extremely powerful. Yeah, we haven't really covered that whole aspect yet about them being spirits and nature spirits. Dennis,
they have a spiritual. They definitely have a spiritual attribute, and they also are considered, like you said, they are not only sacred, but they are considered to be, shall we say, above the normal echelon of nature itself, almost like elemental spirits in that respect. The Native Americans venerated them in that way. Definitely, they had that spiritual connection with the land itself, and that's why a lot of times they think that these things are represented as also being sort of guardians of the forest in that respect of nature, because they are part of that nature. But here's the interesting facet on it all, Jessica. They're the unknown, secret part of nature that you don't see. You see the birds and the trees and the flowers, but these things, they hide in the tall grass. They're out of the way. They're in the dark and the shadows. So they had an unknown quality to them for the Native Americans, without a doubt.
Oh, and they have powers as far as I guess that they can not only will they stalk you, they can put thoughts in your head, like mind speak, and they can drive you to want to, as we say on YouTube, unalive yourself. They also are known for kidnapping children too, which is interesting because there's other cryptids that are known to do that, including the fairies. You and I actually talked about, what was that? It was like a not doppelgangers, but I forgot the word, where the fairies come and take your child and they replace it.
Well, when you get to the fairies on that, that's called the glamour. Now we take glamour as being, you know, sort of Hollywood thing nowadays, and how women fix themselves up to be glamorous looking. That's not the glamour we're talking about. The glamour, and when they talk about this, is magic, supernatural power, and it also messes with your mind. It can take over your mind, so it's sort of almost like a possession in that respect. These things can use their power to possess you, to mesmerize you, to, like I said earlier, they can lead you over a cliff and to your death, or get you hopelessly lost in the woods, or whatever the situation is. They're not good in that respect. They have that power over us, and that's what makes them so very dangerous in that respect. And that's why I think the Native Americans respected them so well. You respect what can be very dangerous to you.
Oh yeah. Something else that I was reading is that they can wipe your memories as well too, which sounds a lot like ETs as well, or like having screen memories, or just making you not remember things, which can in turn lead you to get lost. And it's actually reminded me of the little people in Alaska. I did a show on the Incinerate people, and that's the little people in Alaska. Our friend Fred in Alaska has talks about those on his channel, Subarctic Alaska Sasquatch. But they will actually lure you off the trail and string you up in a tree and throw rocks at you and let the animals eat you. Okay, so wild animals, it's quite terrible. Okay, they can be quite terrible.
Yeah. And anything that could do that to your mind, starts messing around with your mind, that's downright dangerous in my book, definitely. I would not want anybody messing with my mind that way. But that is an interesting supernatural power that they would have over, other people, to be able to do that. And here's another interesting thing about the Puckwudgie, that according to a lot of the native tribes, that when they absolutely took you over, they could turn you into a ball of light. And they would use that ball of light like the will-o'-the-wisp out in the woods. It would lead people astray out in the woods. So even after death, the Puckwudgie is still using you. It has your soul sort of captured, and it can still manipulate you. That's bad. When you think about it, even death doesn't save you from the Puckwudgie. That's another interesting aspect of it. That they can use this will-o'-the-wisp type of a thing to lead you off into the woods. And they would warn their children, if you see a light at night, do not follow that light. Don't mess with it. Don't follow it. Don't even look at it, because it's probably the Puckwudgie trying to lead you off.
Okay, well, I encounter orbs all the time. We encounter orbs often when we're out in the field doing our research. And so this adds a whole other element to it. We talk about orbs all the time. And we like I said, we encountered them. We've even had an instance where one of our teammates turned into a ball of light and shot across the field. And that really happened. And it was actually, we have it recorded somewhere. Okay, it was Bob. Bob, the head of one of my teams, the North Georgia Cryptid Researchers. It was a weird night. Okay, very weird. But man, I've never encountered a Puckwudgie out there at the meadow, but I mean, maybe that's what happened.
Well, yeah, according to natives' customs and all that could have been a Puckwudgie at work, definitely, because that's what they're supposed to be able to do with you. And that's the interesting thing about orbs. I've had a lot to do. 90% of your orbs are water droplets and motes, dust motes, and insects, but there is that 10% that has an intelligence. So if you see an orb floating around that leads you constantly away somewhere, you're dealing with an intelligence. Okay, it's not just a ball of light or something. It has an intelligence, and usually, if they're doing something like that, that intelligence is not good. It is doing something bad to you in that respect. You need to be very, very careful. But actually, that is another supernatural power of the Puckwudgie, and it's supposed to have a vast array of powers over it. In that respect, to not only cloud people's minds and do things with them in that respect, but it can also change forms on things. So if they can actually metamorphosize into these different things, like a cougar or a coyote or whatever, they could also change you into something as well.
Yeah. Okay, so the more we're talking about these, like I know I said in the beginning of the show, I'm not really scared of these things, but I don't know. They sound way more powerful than they look. Okay. And so but it's on a etheric level and energetic level. These things can be very dangerous. So.
I think I'd rather deal with gremlins than Puckwudgies. I mean, I think you kind of know where you're standing with the gremlins, but the Puckwudgies would get you definitely, one way or the other. But these, like I said earlier, they're like, these things on steroids. They're supernatural beings on steroids. They really have a vast array of power, supposedly, according to the Native Americans. So that makes them very dangerous in that respect.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to be on the lookout for Puckwudgies from here on out. And but I want to thank Maureen and Gus. Thank you guys so much for that super sticker. Oh my gosh, that is so sweet. Gus is my favorite puppy dog moderator, y'all. Okay, so he's over there. He's over there moderating the chat. So so thank y'all so much. That's so sweet. Okay. So not only do we have the Puckwudgies, but we also have, you know, we've compared the Puckwudgies to Imps, okay, and trolls.
Yep.
Trolls and gremlins and Ewoks. But I know you have a show tonight, Dennis, where you're going to be talking about the Fae and the Imps, but there's also something called a black imp. And you had made a post about this on Facebook. Kind of tell me what an imp is. And let's talk about that for just a few minutes. Those are cool.
Well, now the black imps, which are basically found on Mount Shasta and parts of the Pacific northeast and west. The interesting thing about them, they have very distinct similarities to the Puckwudgie in the fact that the black imps can also confuse your mind. They can lead you off the trail. They have that supernatural ability to manipulate your mind in that respect. That's an interesting thing about them as well. Now, they're described as being about maybe 12 to 2 foot tall, and they're supposedly covered with long black hair, and they have red eyes, and supposedly they sound very, very demonic to me in that respect. They supposedly can possess you. They can take over your body and do things with you in that respect as well. Now, they're supposedly known by the Native American tribes, you know, around Mount Shasta. And like I said, Mount Shasta earlier is sort of a mecca of high strangeness in that area. It's also a Native American burial ground. It is considered to be a sacred mountain. It is also thought by the Native Americans to be the center of the universe. That's how much they venerated this mountain and everything on it. And they were very wary of the black imps. They called them devils, black devils too, because they were so mean, and the way they attacked people was so insidious, because they would basically attack your mind and lead you off the trail to your death. So they were not good at all. So they were very much like the Puckwudgies we were talking about earlier. They're very nefarious in the fact that they were dangerous and downright evil to them, to the Native Americans. They did not like them at all. But so they're very well named. The imp, of course, is another name for a small demon or devil, and so they really hold that name up very well in that respect, because they were downright evil beings in that way. And also in that same area, you have the tale of Telos. Telos is supposed to be an underground city that was founded by the Lemurians. When Lemuria sank, some of them made it to California, and they supposedly founded a city beneath there. And here's the interesting thing: the black imps are supposed to be the guardians of that city. They're supposed to be the ones that guard and keep you away from it, so that you won't find it. So they sort of work in league with the Lemurians that are supposedly in the city of Telos under the mountain.
We've talked about that on my channel before, Dennis. I was given a coordinate remote viewing target of it turned out to be underground of Area 51, level 27, and what was going on down there. And it was based off of the actual testimony of a lieutenant colonel out of the U.S. Navy or Air Force, I can't remember, but he claimed to be the intermediary between the inner Earth beings, the Lemurians, and the U.S. military. And so Tyler from Journey to Truth podcast, I referenced in the last show we did, he had given me that as a blind target. And it took me, actually, his testimony included being taken by a bullet train underneath Mount Shasta. Okay, and all of my data coincided. This was a blind target, of course, and it all coincided with everything that he had said in his testimony. So I do believe there are inner Earth beings under Mount Shasta, and I do believe that his testimony is true about the Lumerians. I was picking up on giants and all sorts of interesting things down there.
Well, another interesting thing about Mount Shasta, you have reptilian sightings there as well. And whenever you talk, here's the weird thing about that, Jessica. Whenever you talk about underground cities or installations, you keep running into reptilians. That's another interesting facet. But one more thing I was going to say about the Black Imps. There is a consensus that maybe the Native American tribes in that vicinity, because that place is so sacred, they called up the Black Imps to be sort of the guardians and caretakers of that region. There you go again. You got sort of the guardian spirits that are around, definitely. But here's the interesting thing: there are different stories out on the West Coast, and this is very interesting. Of the many different underground cities, you've got the same story like that about Los Angeles, an underground city under Los Angeles. So you have to wonder if maybe there's not definitely a bit of truth to some of that going on, that somebody at some time or another out in California found something similar to these lost cities you keep hearing about, these underground cities. Yeah.
Well, that was a very popular video that you and I did together, where I had actually remote viewed the underground Little People City, and I think you came on the show with me that night, and we talked about that. So yeah, a lot of strange things. And speaking of reptilians, David Pardue, who's the comment I have pulled up, David is one of my teammates. We go out in the field and do Bigfoot and paranormal field research, cryptid research together. He's going to be my guest on the show, I believe, with Dave Mosier too, on Saturday night, and he has actual video and it's actually photographic evidence for sure too, of what looks to be a reptilian, okay, coming out of a portal. And we're going to be showing that on the show Saturday night. So y'all please come and tune in. David has some of the best video and picture evidence of things that aren't, I mean, a lot of Bigfoot evidence, but we're looking at things that are either little people, aliens. We're not exactly sure what it is exactly, right, David? So, but a lot of really great stuff. We're going to be showing a lot of that on Saturday night. So y'all please come and join us on Saturday with that.
Here's another interesting thing about the reptilians, and it keeps cropping up time after time after. And I have to wonder when these patterns show that you have the connection with underground bases. And you know, there has been a consensus that maybe the United States government actually is in league with these reptilians, and they are actually sort of the security for some of these underground bases. You have to wonder if that's something, also another aspect of it.
Yes, that's right.
Freaky.
It is. Britt, thank you so much for that super sticker. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very sweet. Yeah, it is very freaky, but it's just these levels, these areas of high strangeness. You never know what you're going to get. And I need to make a note too, also, that David Pardue does live in North Carolina. And in the beginning of the show, they showed the picture of the still shot of the little Puckwudgie looking thing. That's in North Carolina too. A lot of high strangeness. I mean, they have a very famous national park out there called Uwharrie, where it's been on Finding Bigfoot quite a bit. They have a lot of Bigfoot sightings out there. They also have lake mermaid sightings in North Carolina. I do some of my cryptid research up in North Carolina occasionally, and that's actually where I may or may not have encountered, well, definitely a witch, something that was running around our base camp all night. Maybe a skinwalker up there, or what I was told was a skinwalker. Okay, so, and we have giants like Judicola, Sukaloo. North Carolina is one of those places that has a lot of high strangeness, Dennis.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you got the Appalachian Mountains there, and whenever you get into the Appalachians, you're gonna have some weird stuff definitely going on. It's just like, Mount Shasta we're talking about, and the Superstitions Mountains, and the Appalachian Mountains. It seems like these mountain ranges are just a big draw for this kind of weird stuff. There's got to be some kind of weird connection for that as well. And I was talking to a friend of mine in Romania, and about the Carpathian Mountains. They have the same reputation as some of these other mountain ranges we have here. So you got to say, what the heck is going on with the mountains? You know, if you want to find something weird, head for the mountains.
Oh
Definitely.
yeah. I mean, I love the mountains. That's my favorite place. I feel right at home in those mountains. And yeah, I love being there. I love the high strangeness. I'm not scared of it, even though I should probably be scared sometimes. And okay, so my friend, let's see, who we were talking to somebody the other day about it. It was Bryce from Esoteric Atlanta. Okay. She was saying that the Appalachian Mountains, if they don't want you to leave, it's like the mountains are alive, right? And I actually went on a hike with her after the Georgia Bigfoot conference with her and her boyfriend and my son. And we went into a very beautiful place.
Here's the interesting thing, Jessica. If you look at the old map of wherever all the continents at one time were connected, we're talking about the same mountain range. You just got disconnected into different continents. It's all the same mountain range. That's the weird thing about it. At one time it was. It's no longer that way. But that is freaky to think about as well.
Whoa. Yeah, David says Uwharrie Mountain's supposed to be the oldest range in North America. Yeah, the Appalachians, for sure. And so much craziness out there. But that's why that's one of our prime spots for us to go cryptid hunting and stuff. And I don't mean like hunting, like we're hurting them, you know, just researching. So, okay, so go ahead, Dennis, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've spent a lot of time in the mountains too, and it is one of my favorite locations, especially for high strangeness. It's just like you've got a different atmosphere, you know. I mean, it's just a completely different thing when you're in the mountains. Definitely. I agree with you. That's where I'd go to hunt. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, well, so what Bryce and I were discussing was that when the Appalachian Mountains, if they don't want you to leave, you're not leaving the mountain. Okay. It is like the mountains are alive. And I can't disagree with that.
They have a spirit to them, like you might say. They have a spirit that is different than other places. Of course, now you go out west, you get into more of the flatlands, you get into the desert areas. There's a different spirit with that as well. I know my friend J.C. Johnson used to live out there in the Four Corners area. That was a very strange. You have some very high strangeness in places like that. There seems to be, I don't know whether it's the ley lines or the natural energy of the earth or whatever's going on with that, but there seem to be certain areas that are just a draw to these things. But that's where I like to go to. If that's where it's at, that's definitely where I want to go.
For sure. We have William Nighthawk in the chat too. Hey, William, I was just talking about you. Okay, we were just talking about you in the beginning of the show today. So thank you so much for being here. William is my go-to consultant when it comes to a lot of the Native American, you know, legends and just anything that has to do with a lot of these cryptids. So thank you for being here, William. I appreciate you. Cryptoville has a question for you, Dennis. Have you ever seen one of these move in a strictly a shadow form? Okay.
Well, that's an interesting observation. There are a lot of Native American legends that say that these things, like Puckwudgies and some other type of spiritual beings as well, can actually take shadow form and move into the teepees or the tents or the hogans or whatever. That's an interesting aspect of them too. They can take a shadow-like form. Anything, like I said before earlier, anything that has the supernatural abilities, all the cards on the table, they can do anything. You know, nothing's off the grid. And to me, that is an interesting part of the supernatural aspect of it. It's wide open. But there are many reports of these things actually taking shadow form. I've read many of different Native American legends where they will say even like the skinwalker and some of these other things can take on shadow-like forms as well. So you got to watch, keep an eye on the shadows too, definitely.
Well, you're hunting the shadows, right, Dennis? You hunt the shadows.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. We had another question. I actually put a star on it. I'm going to go back to this one because I thought this was really interesting. let's see. He says, asked, can they shift into black-eyed children? And now we were talking about the black imps. We were talking about, I mean, I guess we were also talking about the Puckwudgies. That actually is kind of an interesting question, I thought, because it's like one form of an elemental turning into something like a black-eyed child. What do you think about that?
I think you're kind of looking at possession to a certain extent, and that's what they say these things can do. They can actually take over your mind and would take over your body as well. Your eyes would definitely probably turn black in that kind of a situation, or red, or whatever the situation was. And we've talked about that so many times before, Jessica. The eyes truly are the windows of the soul. What's ever in you will eventually show up on the outside, especially through your eyes. So if a Puckwudgie or something like that took you over, I think you'd look kind of freaky. Definitely, you'd have a freaky look about you, and your eyes would probably show it, without doubt.
This may not have anything to do with this, but I've been seeing videos of babies being born with all black eyes. So that's weird. I don't know. I'm sure babies are not being born possessed like that, but it's just a very odd occurrence. I've been seeing that lately.
Well, that's where you kind of go, and we did a show about that one time about the changelings. You kind of go over into the fairy kind of stuff on that as well, because they could sort of take a human child and substitute it with a changeling. And that's an interesting aspect. I think goes all the way back to the Nephilim, the fact that you had alien type beings breeding with human beings, human women, and producing some very bizarre offspring. That's where you get the giants and all that stuff. So it does, you have to think about this. Here's another interesting aspect that the Native Americans talked about. And warned their women, stay out of the woods, because these things can take you off and try to procreate with you. Okay, you got some freaky stuff going on. You wouldn't want to have a child who's half Puckwudgie or something else. You've got a problem in the tribe, definitely. So that's another aspect of Bigfoot and Dogman too. That this was having, that they were out for human women sometimes. You don't hear too much talk about this, and maybe somebody needs to do a show one night on sex and cryptids, okay? Because there is a weird thing going on with that as well, that hybridization of these things. And that's what the Native Americans, especially being people who were close to the land, they were worried about the aberration of nature that way. You just didn't fool around with nature. A dog didn't go with a cat, and a cat didn't go with a dog, kind of thing. Whenever that happened, you sort of you went against the laws of the Creator, the Great Spirit. You went against the laws of nature. You were asking for big trouble, whichever way you went with that.
Well, now we have a lot of talk about the chimeras and these experiments that I don't want to say our government, okay, but agencies are doing in these underground facilities, and there's all sorts of weird stuff going on underneath our feet and right in our faces as well. So that is a great topic, actually, and I've had conversations with people about this. I have not yet done a show on the intermingling of humans and Sasquatch yet when it comes to procreating and things, but that does need to be covered. And I do have to tell you, when I went to the East Alabama Bigfoot Town Hall a couple of months ago, and I got to listen to the most exquisite, amazing presentation by M.K. Davis. And now, if you guys aren't familiar with M.K. Davis, please look him up. He does some of the best research on Sasquatch and Patty from the Patterson-Gimlin film. And he actually was talking about, I believe it's like type 4 Sasquatch potentially being a mix. Like, what he believes is that they look more caveman, like wild man type of Sasquatch. That is, according to what he was saying in his presentation, he believes that is where Sasquatch have procreated with human women. And
well, there's a lot of consensus. There's a lot of consensus, Jessica, that Sasquatch may be derived from the line of Esau in the Bible. You might remember about Esau was born with long red hair all over his body. That's interesting. How did that happen? What was going on with that? There's a lot of contention that maybe some of this is hybridization between Sasquatch and human beings. and it's in our DNA in that respect. So you got a lot of freaky avenues to go down, and that rabbit holes you can get in with that, definitely. Um, but does Sasquatch actually need human DNA to procreate, or is it got something to do with the Cro-Magnon man, or whatever the situation? It's interesting that this could possibly be some kind of a weird hybrid thing, you know.
It could be. That's funny. You're silly, William. Okay, so we had another question too. Is there a seasonal pattern for experiencers? And to answer that, in my opinion, for people who experience cryptids and sightings, and Puckwudgies included, my team, we don't have a whole lot of, and this is just in the woods, okay, because people have experiences in their homes, but in the woods, we don't find that we have as much activity when it's cold as we do like in the spring and the summer. And trust me, my team's out there. We're out there in the dead of winter with snow, a blizzard. We'll be out there in our tents, okay, doing some research. So we all throughout the year, it's not so much in the wintertime here, not in the South at least. But I think it's probably year round, I would think, Dennis, for Puckwudgies and stuff. Maybe not so much in the winter season though.
Well, you know, a lot of these creatures, Jessica, may hibernate. You know, there may be a hibernation that they go into. That would make a lot of sense to me that they do that. That's another way to survive the winters and all that. You would have your den you could go into. You could have your food supply. You wouldn't need to come out so often anyway. Even if you didn't hibernate like a bear, you could still go underground. It's warmer there, whether it's a cave or a tunnel or whatever the situation. That would be the perfect way to survive. If I were out in the woods and it was cold, I would start thinking about digging me a hole or some kind of a tunnel or something, get out of the wind and the weather. So it makes sense when you think about it. You're not going to have that much of an experience in the winter, the winter months, as you would definitely in the heat of summer, when these things are out and more. Everything's more active in the summer. That includes me. That's just the way that goes. Definitely.
Yeah, the spring and the fall are the most active for me. But I'm out there. I drag my butt out there when it's 125 degrees outside sometimes for the research. And actually, it's really just to go hang out with my teammates. We have a lot of fun when we're out there. But speaking of my teammates, here we go. David Pardue has a question. Do the Puckwudgie live in the physical form? If so, what and where would a person start to search? Like Bigfoot, do they leave behind sign of their presence? That's a good question. What do you think, Dennis?
Well, I think there's a strange thing about this supernatural being stuff, okay? They can transcend forms or realities whenever they want to. They can become just as solid as you and I are, or they can become very ethereal if they have to in that respect. What you're looking at is the transitioning of realities, I think. Very much like the skinwalkers and some of these other things supposed to do. You're transcending a reality. You're moving from one phase to another. You can be solid or you can be ethereal. I have actually seen the demonic do that with my own eyes. I know that these supernatural beings have that ability to do that. So it depends on when you're dealing with them. Are they in the actual physical solid form, or they're in a more spiritual form? When you're dealing with them, you never know. And that's the interesting and sort of the dangerous part of supernatural beings. You never know what you're dealing with, whether they can very badly affect you either as a spirit or physically. I think I would rather have, in some ways, a spirit attack me because it doesn't do as bad or much damage as a physical attack in that respect, although I've had it done both ways. I have been attacked both ways. And either one of them is bad. You don't want either one. But you do come out sometimes a little less, shall we say, unscathed from a spiritual attack than you do from a physical attack. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if I think we're going to show this weekend. I'm not sure, but like I said, David is going to be my guest on Saturday night, and he sent me a link. It's actually on YouTube. Okay, on YouTube. So I guess we can show this, but I think it was Dave Mosier, who I think it may be coming on the show with him on Saturday night. These are two serious boots on the ground field researchers when it comes to Bigfoot all the critters and cryptids out there. But Dave Mosier has a video of what looks like a Bigfoot. It's like a flash, basically. It's on his thermal imaging camera, and it's a video, and it's moving so fast you can barely see it. It almost looks like a ghost. And this is something that we talked about on my show that I did with the dog man in Fort Pierce, Florida. In that video on a Facebook Live, it looks as though it's like a ghost or something. It just moves really fast past in the frame of the video camera. Okay,
well,
so
that stands to reason, Jessica.
Yeah.
When you're phasing from one reality to another, you're not in our time and space. You're not in our time. You're not moving in our time. In other words, you wouldn't be seen by our eyes because we're in a different time frame than what you are. It makes perfect sense to me that something like that would be moving, I would think, extremely fast so that you could not see it. It wouldn't even be a blur. You know what I'm saying? It would be moving that fast. So it makes perfect sense when you think about it. If you're phasing from that realities I talked about earlier, if you're phasing from one reality to another, you're moving out of time and space. So you're no longer in our time reference. Put it that way. And I've said this to many people. I've mentored a lot of groups over the years, especially in spiritual research. They go in to do EVPs and they try to catch pictures of these things. I say, look, it could be that maybe we need to, have our cameras to operate faster. And we need to be slower with our reactions to some of this because they're not on our time. They're not in our time frame. And it makes perfect sense that Bigfoot and Dogman and some of these other cryptids, especially if they have supernatural abilities, are not in our time frame when they don't want to be sometimes,
That's a great point. It makes total sense. And yeah, and I saw Brown Dwarf was asking if I had a link to that video. Well, if it's public and if I'm allowed to show it before the show on Saturday night, I will put a link in the comments underneath the description of this show today. Okay, so I will hit up David Pardue. Dave's in here still, and ask him about that because he did send me that this week. And I'd seen that video. It's a video from years ago. But I think it's some great evidence because it looks like it's a Bigfoot and it's moving really fast. And if you blink, you miss it. Okay, but then if you slow it down, you can see it.
I was trying to explain that in many different ways. You look at something from all the different facets. When I had my own Bigfoot experience, he got gone so incredibly fast, so quickly out of my eyesight that it had to be, like I've said so many times before, supernatural in that aspect. He was there 1 second and gone the next. You're moving out of my time and space somehow or another. That's the only way I can explain that,
Oh yeah. Well, that explains it. I think that's a great way to look at this stuff. It's more like on the quantum level. Okay. It's like we can't think in terms of like what us humans are capable of or think of as being capable because we're pretty much capable of anything. Yeah, one of my favorite movies.
Look at the animals in nature around us, Jessica. They don't wear wristwatches. They're not on our time. Okay, they're not on our time. And that's another aspect. They're living in a different time frame than we are. You take your dog, okay, when you leave your dog at home, he thinks you're never coming back. He has a different concept of time. That's just the way he thinks, He said, oh, maybe Jessica's never coming back again. They have no concept on time. They don't have a wristwatch. They can't say, oh, well, she left at 12 o'clock. She'll be back at 3. They don't realize that. So we've got to understand nature itself, Jessica, does not move in our time. Okay, it doesn't go by our time and space thing. Nature is moving on its own volition, And that's an interesting thing to think about. I know the sun goes up and goes down and it gets dark and it gets light, and that's all nature knows, really. That is the time frame of nature itself. As the years go by and all that, we gauge it in years, but it's on a different time frame. And so are these creatures, I think.
Oh yeah, it must be nice actually not having to worry about time. And I was actually watching something this week, a little clip of something that was saying that even speaking on the reference of time, okay, because I just did a show on time travel and time science with Barry Littleton on Sunday night at Spaced Out Radio, and we're talking about time. They were talking, it was, we're supposed to live longer than have a life expectancy of 70 or 80 or 90 at the most,
Yeah,
100 at the most. We're supposed to live until like 120 from what I've been told. But with all of the toxins in the air, with all of the chemicals that we eat and the processed foods and everything, and all the stress that we're constantly under, we've still have a very long life expectancy. So I guess it was talking about like, and even rituals that we do, like singing happy birthday, for instance, every single year, it ages us faster because it's a mental thing. It's like almost like a ritual or something to speed up the aging process. So it's almost like, and that has to do with time too, in my opinion, because we're just looking, we're always looking forward to the next year. Like we're looking forward, or we're dreading it, right? A lot of us, as we get older, we dread our birthdays because we're getting older. I'm just happy to be alive, honestly, but if we were to like stop, I mean, if we were to stop the birthday rituals and stuff, would we live longer? I mean, I don't know. It's
kind of like what it's kind of like what Indiana Jones said. It's not the years, it's the mileage. Yeah. That is what usually tells the story in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, us humans are the only people that abide by time, actually. So, and I'm always late. It seems like I feel like I'm late a lot. Try not to be.
Time always gets away from me. It's an interesting thing, especially if you're a writer. You can start out at 12 o'clock at night writing, and all of a sudden you look up and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Where did time go? Time is relative, and I think it's relative to our minds in many aspects. So,
yeah, and also, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I talk about time a lot, and I also had Frank Jacob on my show a while back who talks about, what else he talk about? He talks about Project, is it Pegasus, or no, the Looking Glass? It's the Looking Glass, and the time technology and stuff. I mean, it's a big thing, and like I said, with CERN and Mandela effects and whatever. I don't know. We're living in a strange time right now. Strange time right now. And yes, the cryptids do not have wristwatches or iPhones. Okay, so they don't know what time it is, but they do. Okay, so even, I'm just gonna give a little tidbit of info. Okay, so with my field research, and this is in regards to like Sasquatch and field research and remote viewing. Okay, there have been times where people on my team have potentially communicated with some Sasquatch. Okay, like telepathically kind of stuff, remote viewing ways, maybe mind melds and things like that. And there was no time. Okay, but it was almost like, I remember that there was talking about how the communication had gone. Well, it's by this moon, by whatever the moon is, when the leaves turn a certain color. Okay, so it is that kind of a thing when you are communicating with cryptids. Cryptids are very smart. Okay, they're very smart. But they don't have watches. They don't go by time like we do. So they do talk in terms of like the moon and things like that. So
and also, when you deal with portal activity, time seems to slow or speed up. And I'll be talking about that on my show tonight, whether the unseelie courts of the fairies. If you spend time with them, if you spend 1 year and you come back and 10 years have passed in real time. So they're not on our time either, So supernatural beings are not held to the time and space frame that you and I are held to. Okay, we've got to realize that. Whatever that creature is, whether it be a Puckwudgie or a black imp or whatever the situation, they're not moving or held to our time frame. And we've got to understand that. That's what makes them very supernatural in that respect. They're above the natural. They're supernatural.
Yeah. Yes, and Sharkin, that we were talking about that earlier, about how they do compare to some of the other cryptids as far as the shape shifting, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff, being able to get in your head and stuff. So yeah, there are a lot of similarities between the Puckwudgies and other cryptids, such as the Bigfoot. They're just a lot smaller.
Well, there are many reports of people having communication with Bigfoot through mind transference. That's interesting too. And if he could do that, that's very much like the Puckwudgie, doing things with people's minds. And I've often had a lot of people tell me, "Well, I did this with Bigfoot. Bigfoot taught him." I said, "Well, we need to be very, very careful whenever we deal with anything that's communicating directly to our mind, because they have abilities that we do not have. So we have to be very, very careful with that, because they have us at a great disadvantage. And whenever you're at a disadvantage, that's not good, whatever it may be."
That's right. Right. And we like to think of ourselves as like the apex predators, you know, like we're like the top of the food chain, but you know what? We're not, as far as humans go and stuff.
No.
There are way smarter cryptids and more ferocious.
We're very limited, Jessica. Definitely in that respect.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation today, Dennis, and super fascinating. I mean, I've actually learned some things today about the Puckwudgies and other little people. I think I had some other pictures. You know what? Let me see if I let me make sure I covered everything, because I had a couple. And listen, I don't have to go pick up my son today, so we got a few more minutes. We can go a little bit over time. Okay, so. Yeah. So there's this one picture that I did. I think I showed this back when I talked about the Insurot people in Alaska. This is a picture out of Alaska. Let me take my banner down here so y'all can see what's going on. Okay, let's take this off. Okay, so down at the bottom of this picture, the story that goes, and this is just the little people picture. Okay, it's a picture of a little person.
Sort of got photobombed on that, didn't they?
They got photobombed. So the claim was the kid and their grandma. And the grandma, when they took the picture, they didn't see whatever this is down at the bottom. But, okay, this is a picture from far away. Okay, and when you zoom in, you can see, they said that's actually a little person wearing clothes. That was in Alaska. Now, some of y'all will remember this. There's a video. I used to think this was CGI, but now I don't know. But this is, I'm not exactly sure where this is from. But there's a video, you can find it online. And it's a little kid. They've blurred the face out of the kid, but whatever this little person is, it looks like a little alien or something. It goes running from that back room past the furniture right there, and I know it's blurry. It's blurry, of course, but that's what it looks like. It looks like a little reptilian to me.
Look at the muscular aspects of it. I mean, you can see the legs very well, the arms, and all. It's very diminutive, just a diminutive type human being. In that respect, it has a lot of attributes of humans, definitely. And you can see the feet, you can see the movement. Looks very natural in that respect.
It does, but it just looks like a little humanoid. And then of course there's other videos of what looks like. Okay, so what you guys are looking at, there's a little red circle. Okay, it looks like a tiny human looking out from behind a wall. This is in somebody's backyard. I don't know if you can see it. It's blurry too, but I just took screenshots from a video that I saw, and it just looks like a little person, a little person. Now let's see. This one's not so good. This is just something that you can't really tell what that is. This was a video that somebody took. It was the shakiest video I've ever seen in my life, and I had a hard time watching it. But there was a little person wearing a domed hat, like a little pointy hat.
With a hat, yeah. Kind of like the gnome hat, yeah.
Yeah, so that was weird. And now this is a video. Looks very similar.
That looks very much like that looks very much like the little beings that are seen in South America. Can't think of their names now right offhand, but there are a lot of those are being sighted in South America. In certain areas.
The people in the video were speaking Spanish, by the way, so I assumed it was in South or Central America on that one. But to me, it kind of looked like a monkey. Okay, so I don't know. I question if some of these are monkeys or duendes. Is that how you pronounce that?
I think they were called Duego or something like that. That's what they call them.
Duendes.
Yeah.
But then of course we have this other one. This is the last picture I'll show, but this is from a video clip from I'm going to say it was in the Middle East or something. Okay, but there's this little creature running on two legs, and it's hopping and it's jumping and it's running all around the house. And it looks very much like that North Carolina footage that I have on my Instagram page. Okay, this is off of Squatch Me Now on Instagram. But it's from somebody's CCTV camera, their Ring doorbell or something out of North Carolina. So, and I know Brown Dwarf, you had said that it looked like a skunk on two legs, and that's what some people were saying. It could have been a skunk, but I don't know. It didn't have a tail. So, but
The
anyway.
interesting thing about the Puckwudgie, we didn't mention, the one way to keep them away from you is iron. Supposedly they don't like iron, which is a thing they have another connection with the fairies, by the way. But the iron supposedly keeps them away. And of course, the best thing in dealing with Puckwudgies would be to respect them. They sort of kind of, they have a sort of an uneasy alliance with mankind. You respect us, we respect you, kind of thing, and you will probably come out all right if you kind of respect them a little bit and don't disrespect them. And a lot of times they seem to have it in for you if you disrespect nature. If you go out in the woods doing the wrong things or treating things the wrong way, then you may have a problem with the Puckwudgies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, David Pardue does have a picture of a photo taken back in 2007 with a little humanoid about 8 inches tall, taken in Uwharrie. That's in North Carolina. Also, going back to the point about not, littering or doing anything bad, like especially, okay, here's the thing. Terry Wendell, who is another one of our, another researcher who goes out with us out of Rock Hill Bigfoot is the name of his group. But he's in South Carolina. I think that he kind of credits him taking a trash bag to the woods whenever he goes on an investigation. He'll take a trash bag and pick up trash. And he believes that actually causes some of the Bigfoots to come in to interact with him in a good way, because they can appreciate that he's out there cleaning up the forest. So,
well, they are considered, and that pops up time and time again. A lot of these things are like what we said earlier about the guardians that are invoked to be there. They are sort of guardians of nature. And why wouldn't they be? Because they're part of nature. They would definitely be watching out for nature. I mean, that's their environment. That's their livelihood, tantamount to their survival. That's part of them. They are part of nature. So they definitely would be watching out for it. Unlike mankind, we do not watch out for nature. We use it. They're not users of it. They're partakers of it, and they're part of it, but they're not users like we are. And so they see it and respect it from a different point of view altogether.
Wow. Yeah, Brown Dwarf says that he's doing community service. I like that. He is. It's community service for the Bigfoots and the critters out there. And we should not leave trash out there. I'll tell you, everywhere I go, just about, it's like a national forest, there's trash. It's just like, ugh. But anyways, that's besides the point. Avina, hi, thanks for being here. Says, my mom saw a Fae girl pop into her apartment and they were surprised by each other. And then she popped back out. She's also seen tree spirits, demons, jogging ghosts, and interfractal child selves. So this actually ties into what you're going to be talking about on your channel tonight, Dennis. Would you like to tell the audience about your show tonight?
Well, yeah, we're going to get deep into fairy folklore and Celtic folklore. I'm going to tell some of the tales of Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. A lot of this stuff is fascinating stuff, and we're going to talk about the vampires of Ireland, the man-wolves of Orrery. It's going to get real deep. And here's the interesting thing about the fairies, or the fae folk, or the good folk as they're called. They are sort of not only supernatural in their respect, but they're completely alien in some ways to what we are. So we're going to talk a lot about that. It's going to be interesting. But it's going to be the monsters of the Fae. We're going to get into some of the bad guys in this and how they do and all that. And also the origin. Where did they come from? Why are they here? And what are they supposedly? What is their real origin? So it's going to be, I think, a fascinating show. It's going to be tonight at 9 o'clock on Eastern Standard Time on Hunting the Shadows YouTube channel.
Thank you, Dennis. Yes, I will be there. I love your shows. All your channel is amazing. You put out the best information, and that is Hunting the Shadows on YouTube. My moderators today have put your YouTube channel in the live chat, so you can just click on that. And you guys, please go subscribe to Dennis's channel, and you can also find Dennis on his website. That's denniswcarroll.com. So you guys go check that out, and purchase some of Dennis's books. You've written some books, haven't you, Dennis?
Yeah, they're on Amazon. Just look up Dennis W. Carroll and books, and you'll get them on Barnes and Noble as well. And if you haven't subscribed to Hunting the Shadows, okay, you definitely want to do that.
Yes, thank you. And Robin, happy birthday, Robin. I just want to be the first to say happy birthday to you. But I'm not going to sing it, okay, because we don't want you to, I guess I'm going to have to quit singing happy birthday to everybody because that just makes everybody age more. Instead of people I don't like. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I would never do that. I would never do that. I'm kidding. That is too funny. Okay, but yeah, happy birthday, Robin. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. I hope everybody enjoyed the show today and that you guys, everybody learned something. I always learn something every time Dennis comes on this show. And I want to thank all my moderators, all my channel members, all my Patreon members, and all the viewers, everybody who's bought stuff out of my shop. Man, you guys are the best. And Dennis, most of all, I want to thank you for being here with me today. So thank you for being here. We're going to have a great time watching your show tonight. I'll be in the live chat. You guys, please come back tomorrow night. I'm going to be doing a remote viewing show. I believe I'm picking out, I'm going to do the baby dog man that I've remote viewed. An alleged baby dog man. There is a picture of it. And so we're going to be doing a show on that. And then, of course, I'll be back Saturday with David Pardue, who's in the chat tonight. We're going to be here Saturday night talking about the reptilian that he has captured on film. Okay. And also, I'll be back Sunday night at Spaced Out Radio. It's a lot, I know. But Dennis, thank you again for being here. Good luck with your show tonight. And I know you're going to do awesome. And I will be there. And so will everybody that's in this chat, hopefully, tonight. Okay. All right. Well, I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Y'all have a great night and a great day. Thanks, Dennis. Bye.